This episode is brought to you by NBA on Prime. The NBA on Prime is back with an exciting week of Emirates NBA Cup action. The knockout rounds begin with quarterfinal doubleheaders on Tuesday and Wednesday night. Then it's a semifinal doubleheader on Saturday. And it all culminates with a championship game next Tuesday night, only on Prime. If you're not a Prime member, sign up for a 30-day free trial to get started today. Restrictions apply. See Amazon.com/Amazon Prime for details.
Brooks Running reminds us that we're all powered by something. Whether it's the me-time energy of a run after a day at the office, the electrifying energy of your first marathon, or the infectious energy of a group run with your friends. No matter what energy powers you, Brooks has gear specifically designed to unleash it. So lace up and let it out. Let's run there. Visit brooksrunning.com today to learn more.
Hey, where you been? Buckeye Talk is about to begin. Hey, come on in.
Welcome back to Buckeye Talk. I'm Stephen Means, and that's Andrew Gillis. Stefan went on vacation for 3 days, so of course, all you know what broke loose. We have news out of Ohio State's favorite team that they love to hate. Here is a statement from University of Michigan Athletic Director Ward Manuel. UNM head coach Sherrone Moore has been terminated with cause effective immediately following a university investigation. Credible evidence was found that Coach Moore engaged in an inappropriate relationship with a staff member. This conduct constitutes a clear violation of university policy, and UNM maintains zero tolerance for such behavior. Biff Poggi will be appointed head football coach in an interim capacity effective immediately, which essentially just means he'll be the interim coach when Michigan faces Texas in the Cheez-It Bowl on December 31st.
One of them.
It's all like it also initial reactions to this, Gillis, because it feels like you got here in 2023 and we just been dealing with saga after saga after saga with this Michigan football program.
Yeah. I texted you guys, and you guys meaning Stefan and our columnist Jimmy Watkins, some expletives when the news broke, and I went, oh my goodness. Because does it not feel kind of like here we go again? It feels like maybe this stuff was starting to kind of slow down a little bit with Michigan. We obviously had the Connor Stallion stuff come up in, when was that? October, I think, was when it first started the league. Maybe it was September. Early on-ish in the 2023 season. That has been in the news cycle for like 2 years now. Now you get this. It kind of felt like things were turning over. It was the Bryce Underwood era. It was a new team, and like we can get into the end. We can get into this at the end of the pod because like obviously there's on-field stuff too. But like we were talking about how young this team was for Michigan, and man, these 26 and 27 games versus Ohio State might be a war. Like I wrote, like Bryce Underwood has the chance to be one of the greatest Buckeye villains ever because not a lot of people have beaten Ohio State three times or even, 2 times and as a starting quarterback. And now here we are. And now this whole thing starts over again. So, it just wild, the fact that, Michigan has just kind of found themselves in another scandal, in 2 separate investigations for 2 very different reasons. It's here we go again. It just kind of feels like it is a very, very how the world turns kind of moment for Michigan, I think, right now.
If it seems like I'm not paying attention to Gillis, I 100% am paying attention to Gillis. I'm also just pulling up stuff and sending things to our texter, 614-350-3315. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Before we did any of this, any podding, any videos, any writing, the first place this went was the text. For stuff like this, man, you don't have to go find it. We're going to tell you exactly what's going on in the college football world, whether it's Ohio State or it concerns Ohio State. And I'm literally texting this to our texters right now. Stephen following up again. This is just me thinking out loud. Ohio State should go raid Michigan's recruiting class, starting with 5-star defensive end Carter Meadows. Because it's a how does this impact Ohio State? That's why our listeners care about this. This is why our readers care about these things. And I do think, Andrew, if you're an Ohio State fan and you spent 4 years losing in this rivalry, and in 2023 come to find out that part of the reason you might have been losing is because your rival was cheating. And that's not all of it, right? Ohio State did not always execute in some of those games. And then the 2024 game plays out the way it plays out. And you lose that game as well. And now, granted, having an inappropriate relationship with a staffer has nothing to do with whether or not you win or lose football games, right? That's just like, ethical, moral stuff. But it just seems like Michigan continuously finds itself on the opposite end of what the definition of being a Michigan man is. Meanwhile, you root for a team who, nobody's perfect, but I mean, you could be dealing with that, right? Versus the problems you have with Ryan Day are whether or not they can execute in the red zone, whether or not they can execute a run game, whether or not they're using their weapons the right way. And yet here's Michigan constantly finding itself in the mud, dealing with some things. And some of those things have grossly impacted you. And now as you're talking, I mean, Michigan's got to go find a new head coach. And in the meantime, Ohio State might start stomping away in this rivalry again.
Yeah, so I was kind of looking through. So as I understand it, when a coach leaves, whether or not fired for cause, like a situation like this, fired because they think he stinks as a football coach, leaves for another job, whatever. As I understand it, you have a 30-day window to enter the portal.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, as you guys are watching this and listening to this, the portal is set to open in like 3 weeks, January 2nd. That's going to be open for 2 weeks. And then
It's going to be open longer now.
It'll be open, yeah, for them. And then the 2026 recruiting class inked a week ago. So those are some options. Like you mentioned Carter Meadows, the 5-star defensive end. We recorded a recruiting pod, and I mentioned him as being maybe the biggest miss, not just because, he was high up on their board. He was, and not just because he's really talented, because he is, but because he's going to Michigan, right? Mm-hmm. And you have to assume that not just Ohio State, but you have to assume that a lot of programs are going to look around and say, hey, Savion Hyder, we were interested in that 5-star running back, and he went to Michigan, and now here we are, and now we might get another shot. So expediency would probably be good for Michigan in terms of who they're going to hire next for that reason, because like I said, the portal is looming. Players can now leave. Yeah, the rating of the roster from not just Ohio State, but from Penn State. I mean, Penn State signed 3 kids? Like, how many kids did Penn State sign in their 2026 recruiting class, right? Like, yeah. I don't know. You would think that, hand up, I don't know the intricacies of Penn State and Michigan's recruiting classes like I do Ohio State, but you would have to think that Penn State would probably be interested in some of those kids. You have to think that there would be some interest there. So, yeah, this thing is something that I think Michigan kind of needs to cap. It's like the oil spill a couple of years ago, right? It's like you just need to cap that well real fast, because the longer that this happens, that's not going to be great for Michigan. So, yeah, all options are kind of on the table as to what this roster looks like. And, by the way, they have a 5-star quarterback who was a true freshman this year who just committed to Sherrone Moore. And people were talking about that being a massive, massive win for the Wolverines now that we got this guy and we got that guy. And all of this is now in question.
And I'm laughing because Ohio State, Penn State, and Michigan have been like the staples of the Big Ten over the last 25 years, maybe even longer than that. And they both just fired their head coach in a span of 2.5 months for 2 very different reasons. 2 very different reasons, might I add you. But if you're looking at it from a football standpoint, I mean, Indiana, they're a good football. Like we were going to do in a couple of weeks like our Big Ten like hierarchies that we do every single year, and this dramatically changes it, right? I don't think you can look at Indiana and go, I don't know, is this sustainable? Yeah, it is sustainable in a world where Penn State just hired Matt Campbell to have to restart the program there, and Michigan starting from scratch again. I think that they have Michigan and Penn State's inaptitudes, and 2 very different reasons again, right? One more from a football standpoint, and the other one because they just can't seem to just behave off of the football field in any capacity whatsoever. If it sounds like I'm frustrated by this, I am a little frustrated by this. I am a little frustrated that I'm frustrated for the fan base we cover, but also it's just behave, man. Just behave. It's not that hard. It's not. And that maybe it's going a little too far, but from a football standpoint, we now live in a world where Ohio State, Indiana, and Oregon are the staples of the Big Ten. Who would have said that 2 months ago? For sure. That those are the 2 staples of the Big Ten. Gillis, we're saying, hey, should Ohio State go raid Michigan's recruiting class and go get Carter Meadows or go get Savion Hyder and all those? I don't know. Like, it's just, I don't know how to talk about this in a sane way. And I don't even know if I'm making sense to you right now. But it's just in real time, this hitting us with an emergency pod. It's kind of a spit in the face to hear a program talk about itself the way it's talked about itself, when everything it's done for 4 years has been the polar opposite of what that definition is.
Yeah, and that's
Am I making sense to you? Do you know how to
no, I
respond to
get
me
it.
right now?
No, I
Okay.
understand. I think it's just it, and like, look, this is not maybe what our audience wants to hear, what people watching on YouTube that are Ohio State fans want to hear. Like, there are people, I'm sure, at Michigan who are probably just as frustrated as like the rest of the world is, because
Sure.
they want to do things the right way. They want to handle things the right way. And then it just everywhere you turn, there's always a really negative story, and obviously one was on the field and one was off, and you don't want to compare the severity of those two situations because they are obviously two very different things.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's for a program that has just not been able to get out of its own way in terms of causing problems. I think
Yeah.
it's another negative thing that Michigan is going to have to kind of live through and suffer through, and Michigan fans are going to have to deal with it, and it's just, whereas much of that program was kind of a I don't know how you want to say it, like like a renegade in 23, and they were saying who cares, and we won the national championship and we didn't need the Stallion stuff and everything. It just kind of feels like things have just gotten progressively darker and darker in Ann Arbor in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
What was there was like with the investigations and stuff, it's kind of never ending.
Sherrone Moore is supposed to miss a game because of suspension in 2026.
He also has a 2-year show cause, which, like, look, this situation is obviously very serious, and that's obviously a really really bad look for Sherrone, and a bad look for
Yeah.
Michigan for like very like we're talking about a game. This is a very life situation. It's an
It
inappropriate
is.
relationship with a staff member. That's obviously really bad. But like he had you mentioned a 1-game suspension. He also had a 2-year show cause. So whether or not a team wanted to hire him, they probably wouldn't have been able to do it until 2027 anyway. This is not a good situation.
Okay, so let's rein in it. I feel like I'm going insane talking about Michigan, and it's because it's never football, right? Because even when we were previewing the Ohio State Michigan game for 2025, I don't know if we were like talking football as much as we were just talking about, can you get over the psychological hold this team has on you and get the win? And the answer is emphatically yes, right? And I don't think Michigan, from a football standpoint, was going to be good enough to beat Ohio State next year. Is that a fair thing for me to say? That Ohio State, even with losing some of the guys they are going to lose, they were going to be the better football team in 2026.
Yeah, I think, I mean, look, you could have said that. Like, we're recording this in early December 2025. You could have said that early December 2024, early December
Sure.
2023, early December 2022, and just said, hey, Ohio State's going to be better. They're going to be more talented. And it just, for the most of, since COVID, it hasn't turned out that way.
Right. But the reason I'm saying it now is it's going to be a brand new regime, right? Sherrone Moore is kind of a holdover from the Jim Harbaugh era, right?
Yeah, this is going to be a clean break.
Yeah, it's like a clean break, and it's kind of a complete reset for everybody. And the reason I'm also saying that is because I do think Michigan had a young team this year.
Yes.
Where when you look at it and you project that out to these guys are getting valuable experience, could they be better next year? Right? We talked about it as if Sherrone Moore can't not make the playoff next year. Right? We talked about it as if like they are setting themselves up to, if they are not in the playoff for the next couple of years, that is a fundamental failure. And it was like already teetering on that in 2025 of you need to make the college football playoff. So saying it this year versus in past years, where in hindsight you're going, how the heck did you lose that football game? Because of a psychological thing. Michigan doesn't have the psychological thing anymore because Ohio State got that monkey off of his back. So next year would have been an interesting football game. So I'm saying Ohio State would have been the better football team. Now they have fired their head coach. They're looking for a new head coach. I'm sure that head coach is going to want to wipe the slate clean in some regard, which is quite hilarious.
Yeah.
If you're an Ohio State fan, there's an element of there are 2 people who work at, actually 3 people who work in Ann Arbor right now that Ohio State fans are probably trying to stick it to right now. And that's Tony Alford as the running backs coach. That's Aaron Dunston, who works in their recruiting office. I think she's in charge of things over there. And that's Kerry Combs, who randomly last Saturday, news came out just as the ball was getting ready to kick off in the Big Ten championship game, was going to be Michigan's new special teams coordinator. Those are three people who spent significant time at Ohio State. Two of those three, and Combs and Alford, spent a decade of their lives working for Ohio State, and they switched sides in the rivalry. I'm sure Ohio State fans are dancing about that, the fact that this has ended this way. But Michigan is going to be starting from scratch and starting a brand new. And the last time Michigan put itself in this hole because it was starting from scratch, Ohio State dominated the rivalry for a decade. And I think that door of that happening is open because part of the reason Ohio State was able to do that was because Michigan made back-to-back bad hires. And you're always 50-50. There's always a chance the guy you thought was the guy ends up being a bad hire. And so I do think there is a world that opens up here where Ryan Day is 2-4 in this rivalry. If Michigan doesn't get this right, we could blink and Ryan Day's 6-4 in the rivalry. And then the one thing that is still a stain on his resume goes away. And it's all because Michigan, off the field, consistently ended up being a disappointment with how they went about their business.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to what I said about and what you were talking about with clean break, because like look, obviously this is a tough situation that's far different than the cheating scandal and everything that went down there. And I said that this could be kind of a clean break from like Sherrone was the last of the Harbaugh guys. The name that I do think is interesting is Jesse Minter, and he is the defensive coordinator currently of the LA Chargers. He was at Michigan from 2022 to 2023 as Michigan's defensive coordinator. He also coached with John in Baltimore. That's kind of a similar track that Mike Macdonald had. Mike Macdonald, I believe, was with Baltimore, went to Michigan for a year, went back to Baltimore to be their defensive coordinator, and then ended up as the Seattle Seahawks head coach. Like, I wonder from a football standpoint if Michigan is ready to kind of cut that tie and say, you know what, we are going to go hire the best guy possible. Maybe they think that's Kalen DeBoer. Maybe they think that that's Brian Kelly. Maybe they make the call to Kelly. Maybe that's we go hire a guy who's ready to take that leap, right? We go hire a G5 guy. But I think this hire is going to be very interesting because, the cutting of the Jim Harbaugh era was obviously for football reasons. This would obviously not be. But the Minter hire I would be very curious about that and maybe what that would say about, kind of what they want the program to be in terms of, a extension of the Jim Harbaugh era and you bring in another one of his guys. Like he still works with Jim Harbaugh, right? He's been with Jim Harbaugh for quite some time. He's been in the Harbaugh family for quite some time. He was a defensive assistant for the Ravens starting in 2017. And then he's been with John for the majority of the time. He went to Vanderbilt for a year. Then he went to Jim. So Minter would be the guy where, if you want to say somebody who gets it, who understands the Michigan man that they're trying to portray and trying to be, that would be him. I am curious, if it's an outside hire. Like from a football standpoint, this job is now very interesting because, let's call it what it is. A blue blood job is now open. And I think there could be some dominoes that fall because of that.
I'm looking up what it means to be a Michigan man. Because even you saying that right then and there is just like, I think what this comes back to is Michigan talks about itself as if it's this moral high ground, and everything but morality has been what their program has been about over the last 4 years. And this is kind of the last straw of that. And from an Ohio State perspective, it's a football thing of, as we're talking about, it's a clean break and we move forward. Ohio State's fans are going to dance on Michigan's grave because that's what you're supposed to do with your rival. And both of these teams are going to play on December 31st. One's going to be playing in a college football playoff game in the Cotton Bowl. The other one's going to be playing in a non-college football playoff game against another team who had a disappointing season. And then Michigan's going to go into the offseason and try to find a new head coach, while Ohio State's going to try to build on what is now a championship program under Ryan Day. I don't know. I don't know if that entire pod just made any sense or not. You're being analytical. What do you think about what just happened over the last 3 years since you've been covering this team in regards to Michigan?
It's not good. It's yeah, you know what? It is a tough emotion. It is from like the emotional kind of pull, right? Like the analytical side of things, like I was saying about the who they could hire and this and that and the other. That's one thing. It's just, the on-field stuff and the sign stealing and the Connor Stallion scandal and everything that happened, that was obviously bad from an on-field standpoint, and that was obviously egregious from an on-field standpoint. And this is obviously sad from an off-field standpoint, right? Like, I don't know if this is I think with the sign stealing standpoint, that was like, oh, let's point and laugh at Michigan and call them cheaters and yell at them. And with this is obviously much more serious, and it's a situation where it's like, you're not pointing and laughing at Michigan. You're not doing all that stuff, but there definitely is like an element of like, man, this is really tough that Michigan keeps finding themselves in these situations, and it's not good for Michigan to keep finding themselves in these situations, because Michigan, again, they talk about it on everything they do. They have, which it's a cool intro video where they have James Earl Jones introing it and videoing it and announcing it. But like on the thing, they say like, we are the University of Michigan, we bow to no one. And, the last couple of years, that has not been the case for myriads of reasons. And, this is, it's just, like I said, it's just another one. And it's obviously a different type and a different level and a different category. But it is very like frustrating as a college football fan. Like you want Ohio State, Michigan to be right. Like you want it to be, two great rivals without controversy and without everything that's going on. And that has just not been able to happen. And now the public knew of the Stallion stuff for 2+ years now. And here we are again talking about Michigan in a way that Michigan doesn't want to be talked about. Michigan wants to be talked about very clearly. They talk about it as like having success on the field, but being Michigan men off of it. And they frankly have just like, they've not held up to that standard. And, this one is just a disappointing situation for that reason.
Core values of a Michigan man. This is per Jim Harbaugh talking about what it means to be a Michigan man. The team, the team, the team. Prioritizing collective good over personal glory. I don't know, Jim Harbaugh flirting with the NFL after every season? Is that doing that? Probably not. Integrity, upholding honesty and strong moral principles. No lying, cheating, or stealing. Well, the Stallions already checked that one off. Hard work, giving maximum effort, and never being outworked. I mean, they work hard. They're football players. They work hard. Loyalty and support. Dedication to the university, its people, and fellow members, offering mutual support. Humility and character. Being a good citizen, acting with respect, and avoiding arrogance, even in success. I mean, sports kind of leads itself to arrogance, right? Planting a flag is not humble. It's funny, it's fun, but it's not humble. And then resilience, overcoming adversity and being part of a supportive community. I don't know, the last 4 years don't sound like a program that's living up to that concept. Sherrone Moore's firing is the latest example of that disappointment for a team who, along that journey, is one of the few undefeated national champions of the past 25 years. And while they have the banner and officially it counts, there are a large chunk of people, and not just Ohio State fans, there are a lot of people who don't really acknowledge that national championship because of the cloud of the Connor Stallions situation. So there's that. Well, here's another saga of what's going on at Michigan. Ohio State, in the meantime, has a college football playoff game to prepare for. Get the text 614-350-3315. It's a 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. Those are our raw reactions to that. And I guess we'll see where Michigan heads next to find a new head coach. So for Andrew Gillis, Andrew looks so like, I don't know, man.
It's just like, I don't know. It feels like every couple of months we get on a podcast to talk about what Michigan has done wrong this time. So tune in 6 months, because there's probably a recruiting thing down the line that they did. Like, I saw, like, I cannot emphasize this enough, that I saw the news and I went, man, they're doing, like, this thing is gotten rotten again.
I rolled my eyes.
Yeah, it's like, and it was literally, like, I don't want to say here we go again, because this is obviously brand new. Like, it would have been here we go again if it was like they had blank recruiting allegations or recruiting violations or this happened or that happened. Like that would have been a here we go again. This was like well, that's a new flavor of terribleness coming from Ann Arbor. That's a new flavor of just not great. And it's just, I'm genuinely flummoxed that it keeps happening in ways that I was unexpected for. And nobody expects, something bad like this to happen. But like, man, it's not good.
I think there are times when breaking news happens when you're not expecting it and you're like, whoa, but you're like excited to talk about it, or at least intrigued by what's happening.
Yeah, 100%.
This is not exciting to talk about. It's just,
right.
It's draining and exhausting that they keep doing the same thing. They just keep finding a new way to do it.
Yeah, right. I was gonna say like that's the thing. It's not the same thing. It's like they're finding new ways to be on the wrong side of things. I think that's
Yes.
the best way to put it. They're finding new ways to be on the wrong side of things, and then it's again like
Yeah.
and again and like look, there's real life implications here. This isn't a team won a football game. This is different, and it's just yeah.
Yeah. I think to close this out, because again, we understand we're an Ohio State podcast, and most people, everybody who's listening to this for the most part is an Ohio State football fan. Listen, like, Ryan Day's not a perfect coach by any means. He has his flaws, obviously, right? But all his flaws are in between the lines. Like, we're trying to figure how he doesn't have these moments. He doesn't. He's a good guy. He's genuinely a good guy. Is he a perfect head coach? No. Does he need to figure out how to score in the red zone consistently? Yes. Does he need to figure out how to have a consistent run game year in and year out? Yes. Does he need to maybe make some personnel decisions on the offensive line and maybe in the special teams? Yes. But like, that's normal stuff. Those are the things we're supposed to be talking about. So like, your coach isn't perfect, but he's pretty darn good at his job, and you never have to worry about this type of stuff with Ryan Day. And I do think you can applaud that. Whenever you're complaining about Ohio State, you're complaining about the right guard, not about whether Ryan Day is doing what he's supposed to do off of the field. 614-350-3315, 2-week free trial, $3.99 after that. I don't know. The next module here, we're going to be talking about Ohio State's latest Heisman Trophy finalists. So yeah, tune in for that as Ohio State prepares for a college football playoff. For Andrew Gillis, I'm Stephen Means. Talk to you guys later.
Hey, Ryan Reynolds here for Mint Mobile. You know, one of the perks about having 4 kids that you know about is actually getting a direct line to the big man up north. And this year, he wants you to know the best gift that you can give someone is the gift of Mint Mobile's unlimited wireless for $15 a month. Now, you don't even need to wrap it. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan equivalent to $15 per month required. New customer offer for first 3 months only. Speed slow after 35 gigabytes if network's busy. Taxes and fees extra. See mintmobile.com.